Going on, everyone? Welcome to a Thursday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. We are brought to you by our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Road, Deptford, New Jersey. We call it Deptford, the Mount Holly-ish area. Hey, by the way, they got another store in Livingston, New Jersey, just opened up. We want you guys to go out there, support them as well, please. 449 West Mount Pleasant Avenue. Give them a call as well. We'll give out the number throughout the week and later on with this segment. But as always, if you swing in now, you tell them you heard it right here. The Play It Again Sports Deptford location. Let them know you heard all the advertising and all the sports chatter right here about all their wonderful merchandise, the tees, the hoodies, the jerseys, hoodies, apropos with Belichick. We'll get into that in a moment. The skates, the ice hockey, the golf equipment, the bats, the football. I was in the other day. Unbelievable. It was sprinkling a little. It was snowing a little bit, but the store was packed. Great merchandise. Unbelievable stuff. If you tell me you heard it right here, don't forget, when you walk in through the month of January, 30% more. You get the store credit and or cash used, or we like to say very worn sports equipment and more. And they got some really good stuff. You walk in there with, just pristine merchandise too, man. You're going to get some good value for your buck. And with that, speaking of good value for the buck, the prop, Professor Shine, kind enough to join us. I'm wondering, first of all, he's got the little Lions decal, but I thought maybe you would jump on and you would cut the sleeves in honor of one head coach, Bill Belichick. The hoodie no longer in New England.
Yeah, what took them so long? I guess was Kraft sitting on it. It's just weird, They didn't want to avoid Black Monday. I'm not sure. Traditionally,
Sure.
Monday. Why? What? Because you're actually doing the coach a favor. If he wants to get another job. Saban yesterday. In the middle of the day too. Was that a surprise for you? I wasn't surprised. It seemed like the
No.
national media was
Carroll, Belichick,
surprised.
Saban.
Well, some people were surprised at Vrabel. I wasn't.
I wasn't either.
Listen, he won 2 division titles. I think. I don't think he's a bad coach. He made a huge mistake when they were up big a couple years ago. They up in Kansas City. They remember they were up big and they had an opportunity. There was a 4th and short, I believe. I go back and look at the play-by-play. I don't know. He took a field goal thinking, hey, I'm up. Whatever they were up. They were up a lot. Remember the first one for Kansas City a few years ago. They were down back-to-back games.
Yeah, and you knew, and that changed the whole complexion of the game.
Yeah, they were down in the divisional by a lot, by I think 24, and they scored 35 straight points, and then they were down 21 or 17. They were down a lot to Vrabel. And I saw Bill O'Brien do this same kind of thing, and it you hate to focus on one play, but
right.
When O'Brien was up in New England and they were winning, and Doug Marrone did something similar. They had a chance to go for that 4th touchdown, and they kicked the field goal. And there's a big difference between 20 or 24 points and there is 28. It doesn't seem like much, but historically, that 4 touchdown thing is insurmountable. 24 is not. Of course, it's insurmountable unless you're Staley in charge, but or the biggest comeback besides that, believe it or not, was Reed when they were beating New England by 4 touchdowns. But you get my point.
Sure.
There's lots of people come back from 3 touchdowns, and only 2 people in playoff history come back from 4. So I just thought he took the needle off a little bit. It's the fact that Vrabel got to that was a big deal. I thought they'd give him another year, unless they have somebody they want to replace, or excuse me, or is the coaching, the people that are available, is it deep this year, deeper than other years? I don't always pay attention. I do when it happens. I don't have a great memory of who was available and who wasn't, unless it affected teams like, that I was, the Eagles or somebody I was directly following. Because let's face it, if a coordinator, off a particular, maybe a top tier college team, or if he's an assistant coordinator, even
Right.
in the pros, we don't know that much. I don't know that much about it. Of course, you can look them up, but it's hard for me to judge who's going to be, a really good coach. Vrabel, we think he can be good. He didn't have a quarterback.
No, he didn't. And you're going to lose a running back. And think of what's going on. Belichick basically steps down, resign. They move on from Belichick. Grable's very familiar with New England, right? Harbaugh wins the national championship, which you called. They smoked them. We knew that. Hopefully, listeners tuned in and you loaded up on Michigan. Now, Harbaugh's name is going to be out there. Pete Carroll, which surprising, I think, when you think about it.
I think that's another thing. They offered him a job in the front office.
He wants to coach.
What do you think about this, though? I mean, well, there's two points I wanted to make. It made me think of you in the show. Everybody's killing the 70-year-olds. I think I sent you a text.
You did. You text me that.
70 is the new 55. This is 2024. This isn't. I think I gave you the example when I put it on Twitter. Bear Bryant. When Bear Bryant, when I was a kid and he resigned, he'd been there for 100 years. He looked 100. When he resigned. So when you're, of course, when you're 12, 13, 14, 18, you think of, oh, this guy's really old. Everybody 60 and above looked the same. But he looked really old. And as I got older, I was like, oh, my God, he was only 69. Like Pete Carroll can get out there. He probably can run a 10K.
He can probably coach another 5, 6, 7 years.
He probably can. And the second thing I thought about Pete Carroll wants to take a year off, he'd be better for the studio guy. He'd kill all the studio guys. He's got a personality.
Yep.
He'd be like Lee Corso.
Yeah, he would push back.
Sure, he'd be fun. He's got a lot going. And things that I've read on some of these forums and all, that he's still really loved in USC by alumni and by boosters. I don't know if he'd ever go back, but because once you win a Super Bowl in the league, they play for pay. How do you get up in the morning for USA? Unless he really loves the kids and really loves it. But people throw this off in the media, like, offhanded. People are floating Harbaugh to Alabama. They're floating Belichick to Alabama. I mean, people are nuts. Like, and they're also disregarding this. Maybe my take's wrong. Of course, I never think I am. But Saban, why can't Saban coach in the pros? People are like, oh, he was a failure in the pros. Listen, the story of Saban was, it's conflicting things. You might remember this. When his entire career rested on if they signed Drew Brees in Miami.
Coming back off the shoulder injury. Yep.
And there's all these conflicting reports. I tried to find the article that when it first came out, that Saban was pissed. They were like, sign the guy. Screw his shoulder will be fine. Let's take a shot. It's worth it. The alternative was Dante Culpepper.
That's right.
And then, Saban was there, and then he left it. People are like, oh, he's a failure. Well, go back and look at the facts. The same thing when people mention Belichick was a failure in Cleveland. I went over that a few weeks ago. He won 11 games in a playoff game.
Yep.
With no quarterback and an owner who the next year announced they were leaving in November.
During the season.
Of the season. You imagine that going on now? It would never happen. It never happened. We're coaching with that over your head. But that point is just about like people throwing things out without remembering, just looking at the record. Saban was not a failure. Matt Rule was a failure in the pros. And even that, Rule's going to get another shot somewhere down the line.
Greg Schiano was a failure.
Well.
Yeah, right. Schiano was
Greg Schiano. But remember, Pete Carroll failed at the Jets and New England. And then with the USC, and then got a third thing. So sometimes you may need that second thing. Not a lot of guys get it. Like, I think Lane Kiffin will get another sniff. I think, that leads me to my guess that nobody's put out there, and I have not read it, is if I'm if I'm Tepper, Tepper's, the new Daniel Snyder,
Yep.
apparently.
Carolina. Yep.
Tons of money, ego. Uh, you're not making a run at maybe Saban? Do you care about his age?
No,
Hire
you
a lot of young assistants. Say listen, I'll give you a 5-year contract. We really want it to be 3 to 5. I want to see who you bring in.
right.
And maybe it could be something that we transition. Actually, Tepper probably doesn't even say that. Saban will probably say that. Say, listen, I want the job. I'm bringing in my 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, whatever.
You got the quarterback in place. He's familiar with the
I want a
quarterback.
5-year contract, and then I'll transition out in the 4th year. You can put it in right. Saban doesn't have any value, like oomph value. He definitely does. The narrative of he's too old. What's he going to do at 72? What's he going to do? Golf? The only thing I can think of is he's going to get a lot of money to
No,
be an announcer.
It makes sense. You're not going to go with a Carroll, and you're not going to go with a Belichick in that situation. Too much ego.
No, but you might go with Saban.
Saban has the ego, no doubt. But again, connect the dots. You got Bryce Young in Carolina, right? So there's the familiarity right there. You bring in his
guys. You're gonna have a good. He'll make the defense even better. Saban. Plus, I don't think it wasn't like the Dolphins were 3-13. It wasn't like it was an Urban Meyer job. Their defense was decent. They just didn't have a quarterback. And they had a shot to get a quarterback, and they passed it up.
That's right.
Now, the stories that came out later was that Saban was involved in that. When's the last time a head coach who isn't the GM has a say in that? You know what I mean? I mean, he may have. I always thought that he just didn't want to burn any bridges. He was like, listen, the onus was on me. I made the bad call. We were all in agreement. He moved on. This way, in case, people remember that years later. Say, listen, when things went bad, he didn't burn any bridges. As far as the Belichick thing, I thought it was odd that he didn't get, you hadn't since, these have been rumbling since Europe when they lost to the Colts.
The London game.
And that's when we talked about it. And I said, Washington makes sense because they have deep pockets. There's not a shot Rivera was staying there. I'm surprised the national media thought Rivera. You think Rivera's going to be fired? Rivera's been out
a year ago.
Last year. Yeah. Because you can't hire. They knew Snyder was out. And I put on Twitter, I got a bunch of responses. I should get thousands of responses. Some of these are really funny. And I said, Snyder was busy blackmailing the NFL instead of running the team. Everybody was a lame duck. Soon as the NFL was trying to get rid of Snyder, as soon as he agreed and took his $5 billion, Rivera wasn't going to, get somebody new. They're going to, and Rivera is a trooper. He stayed. He didn't badmouth anybody. But he's recovering from the cancer. People are like, oh, look how bad he is. He's mailing it in.
He'll get a coordinator job.
Sure, but he's not. It's just, I think some of the national media are spread a little too thin. And when I'm studying for stuff as far as lines and all these things come up, and I'm sitting there thinking, now Snyder's suing the NFL, and they got and then they get Josh Harris group in there. He's going to bring his own guys in. And that's when we talked about, well, who would you bring in? Now, I know they don't have a quarterback, but look, they're going to get one in the draft.
Of course they are.
Now or Highwater. And now, you mentioned it, and I agree with it. Nobody thought this in September, but, Russell Wilson's out. And you called him the bridge. You can't get him as a bridge quarterback? Sure. Russell Wilson wants to leave in 3 years anyway. You can't bring Russell Wilson in, and he can't be serviceable.
Yep.
Is there 17 guys better than him? I mean, that, and then you still have a chance to get Drake May or one of these other. I know. And then if you're not happy in that scenario, Kirk Cousins is out there. You might get Justin Fields. And the good thing about if you bring Belichick in, your defense is going to be good.
Of course, he only concentrates on the defense. He doesn't give a shit about the offense.
His drafts have been
horrible.
Awful. Like, I actually went back and looked yesterday. I spent 15 minutes and I stopped after.
They've been bad because he's wearing too many hats. He's wearing too many hats. And we've
Yeah,
seen that. Andy Reid was overwhelmed with that. Pete Carroll to a point got overwhelmed with that.
Your Giants worked really well with George Young and Parcells.
Of course.
Never complained.
Young, of
Young
course.
was great. Parcells complained when he went up to New England.
That's right.
And he wanted a defensive player, and they drafted Terry Glenn, and they had the press conference saying, if you're going to make, the stew, you want to be able to pick some of the groceries.
Yeah.
But he didn't complain when George Young was there, and Gibbs never complained with Beathard.
It was a different era of football, though. That NFC.
But when Beathard hired him, he let it be.
Yeah.
Gibbs was young. He was the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. They bring him in, and he says, I only got two rules. I pick the players, you do the offense. And I'll never tell you how to run the offense.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how to pick the players. He goes, if there's a gray area, we'll have a conversation, but I'm the vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beathard laid it out. I mean, I think Belichick earned the right to have that, but he also put himself out, and look what's happened.
It's been bad, and people are going to equate everything with Tom Brady, and it goes hand in hand. You got now former players are coming out. The run's remarkable to never be duplicated, especially in the NFL because of free agency, and guys always want to jettison in teams, and who's going to go, the coach, the player first and foremost. But Belichick can take a year off, and it'll still be a hot commodity. Harbaugh winning the other night. What happens now? It sets up this domino effect where, if you're a Jet fan, you're like, Christ, why'd they give Saleh a vote of confidence? If you're a Bears fan, you're like, Christ, why did they give Eberflus a vote of confidence, right? Because now we want to connect the dots with Harbaugh. So it happens every year. Like, imagine being one of these young coordinators and interviewing for some of these jobs, knowing that Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, and potentially Harbaugh are out there, right? Jim Harbaugh's. If you're you're like, I don't have a friggin' chance in hell, man. I'm going there with my little 2-paragraph resume.
If you do it for the experience.
And here's another name too.
Maybe they'll come back and say, hey, we really liked what you had to say 2 years ago.
I can see Harbaugh hedging the bet, milking Michigan for more money, deciding it was almost like intimated that he was going to stay with Michigan. But if not, what happens, again, these are all speculatory, if the Dallas Cowboys get waxed? Here's another one. What happens if Philadelphia Eagles? What if the Philadelphia Eagles lose on Monday night? We don't believe they are, because as you tweeted back at me, Tampa stinks too. But let's just say they win 20-17 and then they lose the following week and get embarrassed. Is Sirianni not going to be on the hot seat heading into next season? Do you not entertain the thought of...
The national media has brought up, Lurie has a quick trigger without looking at what really happened here.
No,
Chip Kelly I thought at the time got sort of a raw deal. The year he had Sanchez, they were 10-6, but they were like 10-4, and they lost the last two. They lost a Thursday night game in Washington. It was like a 10-point favorite. It was a terrible loss. And then the next year, so he made the first year with Foles. They lose to the Saints. Second year, Vic gets hurt. I thought he did a great job. He's playing with Mark Sandy, a third-string quarterback. They go 10-6. Next year, they go 10-6 again with the carousel and all.
But go back to the losses.
But the Kelly issue was him and Howie Roseman didn't get along.
Nope.
And he did, like, Roseman, he made Roseman's office change. And then he didn't go to, like, the Christmas party. And then the rumors of, because he got rid of Deshaun and McCoy, that somehow he was racist, or that narrative, the only people that had problems with Deshaun Jackson and Shady McCoy was Chip Kelly. All those things in a bunch, and no playoff wins 3 years, they decided to move on. But it was something internally. Lurie didn't like him. He's not a nice guy. He's kind of a surly kind of guy.
Yeah, but you also you got it.
Surly guy to the media, but he's supposedly he's hysterical.
Right.
Kelly's not like that. He's not married. Nobody wants to be around. That was why he got canned. Why Peterson got canned is because Lurie wanted him to. well, it's Wentz, but they want him to get rid of his coordinator. And Peterson said
He
no.
didn't want to do
He
it.
says, absolutely not. None of my staff goes. That's why. So that
Yeah.
it wasn't like, some of the national media, they look at this and they go, oh, yeah, Lurie's got a quick trigger. I don't think any of that plays in here. For the main reason, Sirianni's has a contract. I mean, you only get that money back if these guys get hired somewhere else. You can really get screwed. That's why I think Belichick didn't get fired on Monday. He doesn't like talking about the contract. He obviously had one. It wasn't a 1 year one.
It wasn't. It was a multi-year deal.
Sure. He didn't talk about it. That's what they were working out. He was working out. I don't want to have to pay your ass $40 million for you to go and say, well, you know what? What if nobody hires him? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think somebody wants him. I actually think, of course, I'm speculating, but I think it's a good speculation that some of these talks had to do with what happened in Atlanta as well, because Arthur Blank is another, fiery, in your face, hands-on kind of guy. Remember, for people who know Arthur Blank, he started Home Depot.
Home Depot.
I mean, people can Google, look at the story. Him and the partner. The NFL can't be as hard starting Home Depot, but he's 82. He wants to win. How many more years does he have? Blank. So he's not going to, give a throw to Belichick. Now they don't have a quarterback. It's a problem.
Their quarterbacks stink.
But that's, that's definitely plays into this, where they come in and say, I want to, have an interview with Bill Belichick. I still think he's going to go to Washington because of Washington's under the cap. The new owner.
I just think I think it's a fit. Down 95, right? Annapolis. That's kind of where everything was started. He doesn't
want to leave the East Coast. The rumors of him going to San Diego. That's all the Charger Nation speculation. I don't think the Chargers are a great job. They're second tier in LA. I'm still calling San Diego. Like the fact that they just Spanish fan, build your own stadium. Go outside the suburbs. Like that was Philly. If Philly didn't build a stadium, they'd be out in Montgomery County or something.
And that's the other thing. People talk about Harbaugh to the Chargers because he played there and they got a quarterback, and here we go. That family's not going to open up the checkbook. So
they're not giving them $10 million. I mean, they're not going to give them $10 million a year.
I can see if the Raiders don't hang on to Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce is either like a defensive coordinator. I love the Giants to maybe go after him, or Antonio Pierce maybe goes to the Chargers as their head coach, right? Keep them within the division, even though that's not what you want, but you turn around, you stick it. I mean, there's so many moving parts to everything, right?
So that's another thing that's kind of bizarre. Well, maybe it's not bizarre. I just don't get it. The players want Pierce.
It doesn't matter what they want.
You have a 53-man roster. I don't know what players are going to be there next year or the year 100%. After. You know what I mean? Who cares? I don't want to say who cares about the players, but who cares about the players?
But that's talking head speed. That's talking head speed.
They don't decide.
Yeah, I know.
They don't decide.
I know.
Remember in New York, Herm Edwards, the players coach. Well, guess what? They're not playing for him.
Yeah.
People play, the professionals. They play because you're getting paid.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid. You don't play better based on how much you like your coach. You have a job to do. And most people will play better out of fear for their job.
Well, with that being said, though, how do you quantify right now, or at least if we can try to maybe encapsulate what's going on with the Eagles, right? Because
there's something internally there, Rich. I wish, who's the beat writer there? I mean, do they have a beat writer?
They have 20.
What's the sense of having a beat writer if he can't tell you what's going on? I don't know. He said, "Oh, it's off the record." Well, float it to me. I don't know. Take all the beat writers out there. If they can't figure out or put in print or put on in the sports world what's going on, because there's something going on with I think I'm speculating. Yeah. It's good. They don't like Matt Patricia.
Nobody does.
They don't like Matt Patricia. Now, I am cheating a little bit. I did hear a little bit through the grapevine because there are people that, are related to some of these people. I mean, listen, I'll give you an example. The guy who used to be the GM of the Jacksonville, he's in this front office here, called David Caldwell. And he has ties all over the league, to Buffalo, to the Colts. He started with the Panthers.
Yep.
He's close with Chris Polian. He knows all those guys talk. You think I'm not going to hear something? I mean, listen, nobody likes Matt Patricia.
Nobody. But you still got to go out and play.
Right, but it stems some slack. And it's this kind of thing like we were in high school. Oh, you're friendly with that guy?
I don't like you.
You know what he said to me when I was in Detroit?
Yeah.
You want to piss off your teammate? It's easy to piss off the coach. He's not the head coach. Whatever that is, it's like you're back in the lunchroom a little bit, And some of these guys, we forget they're young guys. They're in their 20s. Some people don't grow up. They don't look at themselves as professionals.
But even with that being said, if plays are being drawn up and called in, I mean, look, you can't have Hassan Reddick drop back in coverage, right? That's good. But my point is, you think some of these
it's bad.
But you think some of these players are basically like, you know what? F this guy. I'm going rogue. Like we saw what Crab Legs Jameis Winston did. I mean, are we at that point? Because if we're at that point, then you have to.
No, I think you still play hard,
right.
But I think it takes it's a game of 1, 2, 3, 4 plays can change the game. If you look at the Miami game, the Josh Allen scramble, you had 2 Miami defenders there, and they didn't get the tackle. I don't think it was lack of effort. It's just Allen's effort was better.
They're just not executing.
The angle was better. But I bring up that play because if you're slow to that, and you're kind of like, you're going 95% speed. You miss tackles like that and you lose games. So I do think if you don't like, or if you're not getting along with the coaching staff, it can come out in different ways. I don't think they have a problem with Sirianni. I think they have a problem with Sirianni's assistants, namely Patricia. I mean, they lost the offensive coordinator, lost the defensive coordinator. Apparently, they loved both the guys, especially the defensive coordinator. And now, when they were 10-1, you didn't hear none of this.
No, it's amazing you can't get any of these writers to get anything out, but you got to hear from national media who's not around the team as much.
Yeah, and they're guessing. They're purely guessing. Our guesses are better because we're closer to this. That's what's going on. But even with all that, like I looked up. Brian Boldinger did a few plays. I've always liked, of all the media guys, I've always liked him going all the way back years and years and years, because he was, back in the day, he was one of the only guys who used to talk about rush defense and yards per play and things like that. Nobody was really talking
great at breaking down
25 years ago. And then he would break the film down, and ESPN used to have that really good show where they would do the aerial. Jaworski was on it. It was a great show to tape, to watch. Now you can tape your own game. But still, the angle is what the coaches see, because you see all the players. But the point is that he showed a few how people were blitzing, how the Giants blitzed Hurts, and he's been a little bit slower. He's not able to break as many tackles as last year. There's a few sites that'll have that stat. It's lower. It's like half of what he did for. That's not the problem, though. The first thing I noticed after watching the couple of the plays, he wasn't sacked. He rolled out, was incomplete 2 different times on sack. Is what's his name? Missed tackles. Missed blocks. I'm sorry, missed tackles. Kenneth, what's his name? Gainwell. So he missed both gap blocks. If your backs aren't going to block,
then you're done. Plays blown up.
You're going to have a problem. That's not Hurts' fault. Now, his elusiveness, it should have been a 10-yard. If that's Kirk Cousins, it's a 10-yard.
You saw that in the Giant game too. The Giants just were getting there, but couldn't wrap them up.
Sure, and Tampa blitzes a lot. Now, I told you I had an Alabama fan 3 years ago. Somebody who played he wasn't a superstar, but he had played years ago and was an alumni, and I seen him locally. And he said, when I don't know when's the NFL going to figure out that Hurts can't roll to his left.
I've heard
I
that.
was like, well, they got game film. Remember his rookie year, people were like, oh, we made the playoffs as a seventh seed. People were like, maybe he's not a backup. Maybe he looks good. And then last year, and it took a little while. Maybe it took for him to be a little bit, get a little bit banged up, his being less elusive. But if you're not going to block the edge, the gap rusher, you're going to have a problem no matter who you are.
That's why the Giants rushed off the left side, and you saw the one pick to McKinney. Hurts was rolling out to his left.
But the one block, Gainwell's over here. He should be here and looking at both guys. You can't blame Sirianni. You can't blame any of these guys if the guys aren't going to, unless you go in and film this week. Listen. Well, and then somebody said, why is he in the game? Like, you know what I mean? When it's spurred of moment, you don't know. You're like, oh, is he hurt? But no, it was a block. He had missed 2 blocks. So all this leads to, I don't think he's getting fired.
Okay.
It'll be that's all the narrative will be if they lose to Tampa. But I think no matter, unless it's like, 40-0, if it's something crazy. If he loses, it'll be a close game. They'll either lose close or win big.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't think, they won up there week 4 or something. Yeah. It wasn't close.
Yeah. 20-17 lose on a field goal, 31-17 win going away.
And I'll admit when I was wrong, I thought the game late might not mean anything. Giants, Eagles. I'm going to do the rehash. I just want to do a mea culpa of where I was wrong. I thought that they would come out offensively and be sharp, get up, similar like they did at home. They had better players.
Yep.
Obviously, better roster. That's why they're going to be champions. They had better, and then they would kind of scoreboard watch second half. I'm going to be getting hurt. And so I bet the second half. I did not have a game play, but I bet the second half. I'm sorry, the first half. Now, interestingly, the second half, they look so bad in the first half. Do you know the second half line? So remember, it's 24-0.
24-0. It should have been 31-0, but Taylor threw.
Should have been right. Do you know what the line was for the second half in the Giants Eagles?
I'm going to say 3.5.
How about Giants were 1?
Wow.
Either way, Giants or Eagles 1. It's 1 because they look so bad. So I had a very small play, and it wasn't as big as the first, but really, I should have played it for what I played the first half. And, lo and behold, they won the second half with the backups or whatever. But overall, my what I had thought, my narrative, so to speak, or was wrong. It was right with Detroit.
Right.
Everybody was on Minnesota. They have nothing to play for. You're handicapping the coach. The coach is playing the guys. Listen, this goes back to your team again. Big
the Giants, 2007.
Ourselves. I hate to bring up other generations, but these guys, there's still people in this league that were on that staff. The game has not changed that much, but Parcells, you're here to play football. Now, overall, I get what he means. You still pull Sims. You still pull the guys that are injured, your main guys. But you can't pull everybody. This isn't college.
The 49ers did it against the Rams, and it basically screwed the Giants in 88 because they didn't want to play.
That's fair either.
That was Walsh sticking it to Parcells.
Yeah. And I mentioned last week, remember the Eagles had basically two bye weeks, end of the year, and everybody's like, oh, they're going to be rusty. You want rest.
Of course you do.
In football, especially the 17-game series. They're going to come out sharp. For anything, any percentage of not being sharp, it far is outweighed with rest.
Yeah.
These guys, 33, 32, 36, 37, you get banged up.
Yeah.
wrist, ankle. But watch Hard Knocks Miami.
Yeah. I
Eight
saw that.
guys
Yeah.
out, seven guys out, nine guys out. You think they don't? You think they won't want a one seed?
Yeah.
And a week,
Yeah.
and
And
some
now they got to
time
go.
to,
Now they got to go to Kansas City.
yeah.
And they
I
got to
think
go to Kansas City.
The
Yeah.
NFL's goal with the extra playoff team, obviously, besides the obvious goal of getting an extra playoff game and more money, was they also don't want dead games. They want as many people to be involved. They don't want as many. They don't want people sitting.
No.
But they did a really poor job. Of course, you can't do everything. They did a poor job of they flexed Miami Buffalo, which was good. But I almost think maybe flex two of the games. Have them on at the same time because Jacksonville killed at
Yeah.
least a portion of Miami Buffalo. Because if
Yeah. The
Jacksonville
buzz
wins, that game is a play in
playoff game.
for
Yep.
Buffalo.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
so I think if I was in charge week 18 moving forward, I would tier the games. I'm saying, listen, it's just what it is. I don't care. Fans are there tailgating 11 o'clock anyway for 1 o'clock games. They can go to a 2:30 game. Now, I don't know that we get out there with the contract writings, but not one fan would care
No.
if you
They would still go.
tiered the games, and then your important games, you had all of them at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you could still flex Miami, Buffalo, but you can figure it out. Like I'm just throwing stuff out, but you can figure it out. I think they did think about it, and they said, okay, here's the only way we can get screwed is if Jacksonville loses, if Seattle wins, whatever happened, it was a perfect storm of not helping them. The Sunday night game still had a lot of juice to it. It was a great game. And then they turn around, screwed the Dolphins, and send them to play on what is it, Peacock, and on a Saturday night.
On a Saturday night.
Oh, I totaled this up yesterday. I was doing a deep dive on all playoff stuff and trying to run a correlation, all this other crap I was running. And if Kansas City's weather stays or as the forecast, I only counted I only went back to 1975. And then I skipped to the Ice Bowl and all,
Sure.
But it's going to be like the top 10 coldest playoff games ever.
Yeah, which is going to be crazy, which means they don't stand a friggin' chance.
It says wind chill 10. Then I'm thinking, what if this gets worse? What if it becomes like the Chargers Bengals?
Oh, the 81 AFC Championship game.
In 81 or
81.
Was it 80? Was it 81?
81. Yeah, 81. Yeah. Yeah.
81. Because 82 was the strike year. So 81, the Chargers play in Miami and then have to go play.
Yeah.
Go look. I mean, I'm not even going to guess what it was.
Still has frostbite. Yeah.
It was negative, whatever. And, most diehards were like, well, they both had to play in it. Yeah, but one team had to play with it.
I think Miami's screwed. I think when I'm looking at these games right now, and I think the two games that I think are not going to be close, the Kansas City game, and I just think the Bills are absolutely going to railroad the Steelers.
I like the Bills first half. I played the Bills first half. As soon as it came out, I played it because, the line wasn't, the game line itself wasn't 10 yet.
Okay.
It was hovering around 9.5. So I got a decent line, better than it is now. It wasn't for a lot, but then I played it. I played it again while it was still there. I think that's the better play. Although I think I do agree with you. I don't think Pittsburgh has any chance. I mean, the only thing, well, I hate to say it, the only chance they have is if Buffalo does what they've been doing all year, it's just turn the ball over.
Turn the ball over
in the red zone. Yep. So if he has 2 interceptions in the red zone, maybe they'll win by 10.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh was doing it with mirrors. Now, what do you do with Tomlin? Tomlin's been there 100 years. Yeah, I know he doesn't have a losing season, but you want a guy that wants to go back over the hump and be elite again. Are they close to being elite, or are they slipping in the
No,
Steelers team slipped into the playoffs? If you're the seventh seed in the current environment and you're the seventh seed, you aren't any good.
no.
Since they put the seventh seed in, none of them won. And I think last year they had a
Giants
kind
went
of
on
a
the
close
road.
game.
Giants went on the road and
They
got
were
the win.
six seed.
So 6 seed. Yeah.
They were six seed. Six seeds a little different. It's a
Yeah.
big,
Yeah. That's right.
six seed should be in the playoffs. Seven seeds, the added guy. Look at the teams. The Eagles made the playoffs. Hurts first year. They
Yeah.
stunk. It was,
Yeah.
it was an exhibition game for Tampa. And somebody played tough last year. I don't know why it's escaping me. I think it
So,
was the field goal game, I think. Oh, and when the Browns went in and with Baker Mayfield, they were a six seed. They weren't a seven.
oh,
So
that's when they beat Pittsburgh, right? That was a high scoring
so
game.
the six seeds
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Six seeds win, and six seeds will continue to beat three seeds in this environment. Five seeds not only can win in these environments, they're favored, as you see the
Yeah.
Eagles. And like you said, the Giants were six seed, but the Vikings were a really poor three
Yeah.
seed. But I'm just focusing on
You like the
the seventh
Browns?
seed and the Steelers. They're not good, and I hate to say lean, but I would value the Bills not turning the ball over. And even if they
Yes.
do, they might put 40 up.
Yeah.
Um, this might look like the Steelers went in the first round a couple years ago, went into went into Kansas City
Yep.
and lost by like 20 or
Yeah.
something.
They
Um,
got rolled over.
it probably will look like that. They made it competitive late, so I kind of like the first half.
Gotcha.
I think it's going to be a little bit different. I think you're laying. What did I get? I got five, I don't know, something like that. I think a decent line is still out there. I think it's better than the 10 because anything can happen. When I don't think they're going to lose the game, but
Right.
anything can happen. You could be up 31-10
And just, oh, by the
and
way,
win 34-25 or something stupid like that. This is why it's hard to love double-digit favorites, but I do like them better in the playoffs because sometimes you get a wider discrepancy, like a team that shouldn't be in the playoffs versus a good team. The Bills are a good team.
do you like, the Cleveland on the road laying 2? Texans maybe, arrived a year early. Cleveland's
It
defense
went it went to it hovered around 3. I think people are going to take the 3 if it's out there
and
with
just ride Flacco.
if you take 3 and it ends up, no, I mean people will take the dog at 3.
Oh, got you.
And there's some people that there's some group that'll just chop up the pennies and hope that it falls 3, which it'll do. It'll fall 3 more than any other number. We just don't know what don't know what team will win by 3. So you cut that those numbers in half. To answer your question, I think the Texans are happy to make the
Just to be
playoffs.
there.
That thinking has not worked all the time. There were a few years I distinctly remember Carolina, the year they went to the Super Bowl and lost the field goal to New England and beat the Eagles. That was the year they won in overtime as a wild card. They were okay. They had Delhomme. They win in overtime against the Rams, and then they beat the Eagles.
That was the Ricky Manning
I was
Jr.
like,
game.
that team stinks.
Yeah.
They're going to lose. Yeah, I don't like them as a team.
McNabb
Whatever.
McNabb had 3 picks in that game. Ricky Manning Jr.
It was at the game. You know what the problem was with that Eagles team? They couldn't stop the run.
And they didn't run the ball in the second half. Yeah.
But Carolina ran the ball and closed the game like 20 straight times. Something it would never happen. It's just unheard of. They just literally could not stop them. But I bring that up because that was the time where my thinking and handicapping was, they're lucky to get in. Let me look at the other stuff along of that stupid narrative, and it didn't hold water because it's hard to quantify. My guess is that they will be so high and they probably will think, hey, we can beat anybody. But it's hard, it's such a hard up and down. Play for your playoff life, and now we got to play for a playoff life again. And in a sense, you already played a playoff game. Are you banged up?
Yep.
Blah blah blah. Overall, the Browns are the better team. Does it stick in their head a little bit that the Browns already beat them this year? They're probably looking at that film and all the other film they can go in. The Browns seem to be the better team, but it's too close for me to even. If anything, I would consider maybe a teaser leg with the Texans. It's not wouldn't be as great as the regular season, but if you wanted to tease Texans with Dallas, that's not terrible. I think the weak link there actually would be the Texans, because you can lose a close game by 10.
How about Bills and Dallas teaser?
I don't like it now at 10. When it was 9.5, you want to pay for 7.
Makes sense.
To get it under 3. I don't like that 3 because a high percentage, a decent amount of games could fall 3. You're going to roll the dice and screw around, because if it falls 3, you don't lose unless you have terrible. But you don't want to push there. You want to win there. So that half point, the 9.5 and 10, is pretty important. Dallas is the better teaser play. You might have some value in the Rams as a teaser play also, but I don't like it. The total's really high, which makes makes the variance a little squirrely.
That might be the best game of the weekend, man.
Total's high. A lot of these games don't go 30, 35.
Yeah.
If the total 51, it's more likely to go 50.
That game's got storylines, though. Imagine that.
It does. People love. Yeah. Here's what's weird. I wanted to bring it up. I have it in my notes because I have all these futures with the Lions, and I'm rooting for the Lions. Why aren't more people rooting for the Lions? I just don't understand. Anything I've heard,
it's all been Stafford.
We're seeing it's all Stafford. Look what McKay's done. And I'm walking my dogs, and it hit me. If you're going to fire guys who don't have quarterbacks, is it fair to overly praise guys who do have quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Stafford's going to be a Hall of Famer. He has a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
And we're praising McVay for making the playoffs. He done a good job. Great, because he was supposed to be rebuilding. But Stafford came back. Nuka Nakua, whatever, is a really good player. But Stafford's a good guy throwing you the ball. You don't have some.
Whereas Goff got jettisoned. They didn't want Goff anymore. They were like, you know what? You can't play. You're not our quarterback.
Didn't want Goff. They got rid of it. Wasn't that straight up trade? Somebody tried to tell me it was a straight up trade. No, it isn't. They got draft picks. It wasn't an equal trade. They gave Detroit picks. And now look what Detroit has done.
I hope they run it up. I love Detroit in this game. I don't think the Rams, Detroit's going to give up points, but big play, the Lions at home, first home playoff game. The motivation is with Jared Goff to stick it back to the Rams, man.
And then just ignore all the national media. Dig deep into, you are what you've done. I mean, a couple people threw out the Miami. Oh, Miami scored 50 on Denver. Denver's not as bad as that. Miami's not as good. But they played the game. They played. They didn't. You can't. You can throw it. You can. If you're going to do it, it's off it's off the. It's an anomaly. Great that they scored 7, but they still played. You have to look at all the games they played. For some reason, people from everybody from Danny Cannell to whoever you want to throw out there. I understand you got a show to do, and you don't have time to look up stuff. But how do you forget that Goff went into Kansas City and beat Kansas City on the road?
Open up the
guys
season.
saying, I don't think they can win a game on the road. The guy won on the road.
Set the tone for the whole season. Set the tone. That was a
guess what? People are saying, the only reason the Saints lost that game is because that defensive pass interference. No, that's not the only reason they'll say. They lost the game. That was in that situation because McVay kicked a field
That's
goal,
right.
4th and inches. I'm like, oh, well, if he doesn't kick the field goal, well, they're tied. Stop. You stop them. If you score the touchdown, they got to score the touchdown. So I don't even. So that play to me
Yeah.
is just something that happened. You went. Somebody else brought up they were killing Rodgers. That's another thing. The Rodgers thing. They're killing Rodgers because he lost as the 1 seed at home against Tampa. Well, I actually freeze framed it and put it on Twitter like 20 different times. There was defensive pass interference right before half where Tampa D-back was holding. And then Tampa got a field goal out of that. And then, they had 1st and goal on the 6 or whatever, and LaFleur screwed it up. I don't even blame Rodgers for that. I blame Rodgers for losing to San Fran the next year, the 1 seed, by 3 as the 1 seed again. That's a way worse loss. Losing to Brady when he had a couple bad calls because Brady gets all the calls. So overall, that entire speech was just to say, give you a context that everything I look, Detroit's better than the Rams and they're home. Yes, the Rams are going to score, but so's Detroit. And Detroit's defense isn't great, but the Rams aren't coming in here with a top tier defense.
No.
You have to stop Detroit. You have to have a really good defense. Dallas has a really good defense. Could they stop Detroit? They made a really good interception on a Goff mistake.
Yeah.
If Goff is going to make mistakes like that, he might lose in the next round. He can't do that next round. I think if he plays like he did against the Chargers when the Chargers had everybody healthy, they're going to beat the Rams. So I agree with you. I have a little bit of a bias. I'm not going to play the game because I'm invested in them to get to the next round.
So am I. I have them as representing the NFC.
I think, but I still think they win. What I'm surprised that people are flat out rooting for McVay. McVay already won a Super Bowl. The Lions have never even made the Super Bowl. Then I hear somebody in national media, they bring up the Browns. He goes, the Browns never made a Super Bowl in the modern era. Neither the Lions. What's going on? So I'm doing the show. There's too many idiots.
All right, last game, Tampa.
You know what I mean?
Tampa and the Eagles, last game.
Oh, well, people have turned it for picks. So I like the Eagles first half as well. So the Eagles line is 3.
Yep.
I do not think the Eagles are in a situation where they'll have to come back down. If it does happen, I'll be taking a long look at the second half.
Okay.
Now the line's low. The line's 3. It's not like you're rolling around with a 7 or an 8 or a 5 or something. You're like, oh, I don't want the game on. I don't want to get backdoored or whatever. I just think that the Eagles can score. I do like them in the game, but I don't think. I think what's going to do Tampa in is Tampa can't score. Now Tampa did have that one game, or they had a couple games where Mayfield went crazy. I think he had a good game. I think it was the Houston game. They playing Houston. Wait. He had a couple,
moments,
big games where he just didn't give up. But I think he's hurt. He's still the ribs.
Yep.
You ever hurt your ribs? You can't even
breathe.
cough.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Even if you bruise ribs.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's like, you've been around boxers your entire life. Like, you're around a boxer like 2 weeks after. It's like, oh, don't make me laugh. That kind of thing, But I've watched Mayfield in earlier games where he's just fighting off bigger, stronger guys to keep plays alive, to gain 2 yards. He did it in one of the games. He saved a 4th and inches. They go down and score a touchdown simply because of his will. And he's not a big guy. But, injuries. We brought up boxing. It's just like, that old cliche, fatigue makes cowards. So do injuries, specifically rib injuries. You get hit again in the ribs. He might forget his throwing motion. How about breathing?
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to get a full Mayfield. And even if you did, it was questionable if they could score a lot. But, last week's game, had to do with what I'm talking about. He
Sure.
was still hurt.
Still hurt. Ugly game.
Had he scored, they had Carolina 2 touchdowns called back. It all looks like an Eagles win. I will probably play the game also. I didn't play it already because I thought at first that it would kind of go to 2.5. Now I think it might end up game time close 3.5. I think it might close higher. But I played them in the first half for North. I would play the Lions if people turned in for picks. The Lions at a juice 3, I think is a good line. We did get that. They came out and smoked the Vikings.
Yep.
I knew the Vikings were dead. I didn't play. I played it first half because again I thought he might come out, romp, and sit some guys. He didn't, which is
You love Dallas too. Dallas took care of Washington.
Here's what's weird about Green Bay. We just talked about the 7 seeds, but Green Bay, probably the first of the 3 years they've been doing this. This is probably the second best 7 seed that's got in, and Packers aren't that good.
No.
Now there is something to be said, and again, this is hard to quantify when you're not looking at the whole. You look at the whole season. Look at Love, in Denver, and he was But then this was a work in progress, which is tough to say because the guy's been there so. But if you're going to look at everything, you see a distinct jump up around Thanksgiving. So if you're around this game or you think you know a little bit about this game, you know that this is practice and practice and practice and practice. And here's some other games. And it's just, you're facing teams that do different things.
Right.
And you have to know this.
It's a different
Some teams do something. When you go in and beat your team in your division on the road, I think it says a lot about you. The narrative at that time was they were killing the Detroit. Oh, what's wrong with Detroit? Maybe something's okay with the Lions. He started making better passes. Maybe LaFleur took certain plays out. I'm not privy to watching all the games, but there are people that are. Just go watch. What has he done different? The 2 games that I kind of looked at on NFL Network again were he was more accurate. The home game against the Vikings, the last game that Cousins was healthy, he missed a ton of throws.
Yeah.
And they had opportunities to tie the game. They didn't even cover the game. They didn't even cover teasers. So they had opportunity, and he just missed a ton of throws. He's only has 1 interception in like 6 weeks.
Yeah, he's
like
well.
18 or 19 touchdowns
down the stretch.
The problem he's going to run into is I think he'll play well, but Dallas has a real defense. Prescott's the wild card here. He's like Josh Allen. He can throw stupid interceptions. He could keep this game close. Here's what I want. Here's what I thought of you in this show and the gambling people that want looking for sides, to play because they're stuck or whatever. Is should this? I mean, initially, without looking at numbers, that people had to be surprised at this line 7. 7-point dogs win in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I
thought it would be an 8.5.
10-point dogs don't.
No,
10-point dogs, 12-point dogs. It's very, very sketchy.
Because they're going to entice people now to use this in a teaser. That's what they're going to do.
The teaser, well, because you have to win 2.
Right. It's
sports books. For their bottom line, they're not worried about teasers.
No, but I like Dallas. I like Dallas going away.
They'll say they are, but that doesn't come into play, or else you would see way more 8s and way more 10s. They're more worried about Green Bay losing the way. Seattle was up 10 in the fourth quarter.
Getting the back door,
because Seattle can score.
Yep.
Seattle isn't like isn't anemic scoring. They gave Dallas fits, and they were up 10 late in that game.
Yeah.
And Detroit, we know what happened in Detroit. I didn't go crazy on the refs because it was a tripping call earlier. There was another miss. Overall, the refs were bad, not just bad for the Lions. What bothered me with the Lions was that Goff threw a really bad interception, and the team played really well. But we saw what we wanted to see. Lions fans saw what they wanted to see out of the Lions in Dallas.
Right.
Because Dallas didn't play well. They're playing a very good team. The problem with the Packers is they're playing a good defense. So I don't think they'll win the game. That doesn't mean that they'll cover. But I started this out by saying, if you saw Dallas at 7 and think, oh, yeah, they're going to win easy, 7-point favorites lose.
Yeah.
That, in this situation, based on the money line, 25% of the time, if it's, we bring it up all the time, it's 25% chance of rain, you're probably bringing an umbrella. It's not a perfect analogy, but that 25% is not a no shot. And the market is telling you right now, it's right around it. Now, when you go to 10, 11, and 12 points, now you're talking about 12% shot, 14, 15. It's a big difference. It's if you play 5 times, you're only going to win one of them as opposed to 2. I mean, it's a different way to look at it and to kind of maybe value the 7.5, because groups that are smart will do that. And they're more worried about people taking Green Bay plus 7.5 than they are Dallas -1 on a team.
Before we get knocked off, looking at the count, I got 30 plus seconds. So we're going to steer clear Browns, Texans. You do like the Chiefs. You do like the Bills.
I like the under in the Chiefs game, although
okay.
I'm a little worried, a little leery that it hasn't fallen more. It's actually going, it was 43, now 44. It seems like a no-brainer, just play under.
Okay.
If it's really bad, these games just don't go over.
Yeah.
They don't score more than 35 in those kind of games.
We both like the Lions and we both like the Eagles.
Yeah, and we'll talk more. I'm looking more for next week.
Yeah.
I already kind of be in the realm of what the lines will be.
Yep.
Who I think will win. I mean, you're going to get, if it happens what I think it'll happen, you're going to get a Detroit-Dallas rematch, and you're going to have some really good games. I mean, the Browns could go, everybody wants to see that. Browns go with Flacco. If they beat the Texans,
Baltimore,
we'll go to Baltimore. But the Texans win the game. If the Texas wins, it'll be Browns in KC.
Yep.
Correct?
Texans ball. Yep.
And then the Bills go to Baltimore, which is also a great game. So,
nice.
That's that. We'll talk more about the hirings. Right now, it's all speculation.
Yep.
If you want to take a flyer, somebody posted plus 300 on Lanning, the Oregon coach, to go to Alabama. It was plus 300. I think there's no way any book's going to take more than $100 on that. But if they take $100, I think, play it.
There you go. See, he gives it that added value there. And of course, the prop from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, as I mentioned, 1450 Clements Bridge Road, Deptford, Mount Holly area. Don't forget the new store in Livingston. But if you stop by now, they'll give you 30% more in-store credit if you mention BYP with Q right here. And told you they got all the merch ready to go. Football, playoffs, we are in gear. They got the hats, they got the tees, they got the jerseys, they got the helmets, they got the golf equipment, they got the ice skates, the rollerblades, the hockey. I was in there the other day. The jam-packed with customers, jam-packed with merchandise, and always a proud sponsor of BYP.
Here's a sad note. Bud Harrelson died.
Yeah, the Hawk, I did see that. Yeah.
Did he die earlier? I just came on my feed.
I saw that. Yeah, him and Pete Rose. Hey, next week, by the way, I want to get into the because I know I got like 10 seconds. I want to get into some of the media stuff with Rodgers and McAfee. I want to get into that with you as well.
Well, maybe we'll do an earlier pod Tuesday, Wednesday.
Perfect.
And because I'll be in Vegas. I'm going to Vegas.
Awesome.
We can do it live from Vegas.
Yeah, love it. All right, brother. Man, wish you well this weekend. We'll talk very soon. Thank you.
All right, cool.